Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Pathfinder Plays, and today we are going to be talking about another portion of the interview I did with lead developer of SCUM, Tomislav. Let's get into it. The transcript which I'll be reading from is provided by NOODLE, the lead manager for the SCUM community Facebook group and the Heaven Can Wait SCUM server. Her socials will be in the comments below, so check her out. The full interview was 4 hours long, but I can tell you it flew by. I sat and listened to the entire interview along with other members of the community, and we all agreed how easy it was to sit and listen to Tomislav show his passion about the game. At the beginning of the interview, Tomislav explained that he liked to be thorough with his answers and he liked to explain them well. He wants players to understand the origin of the game as well as the team that develops it. He wanted to bring some context to SCUM. He told something of an origin story, and this is it. The company is around 10 years old and was founded by Tomislav, Andre, and some investors. This is the team responsible for Serious Sam, which Tomislav was involved with. For the first 5 years, it was a struggle. They faced a near bankruptcy 3 separate times, only having just enough to pay the team and not themselves. He spoke about the first game they created, the combat racing game Gas Guzzlers, but without a publisher, Steam, who predicted it would sell 50,000 copies, would not add it. It did, however, eventually sell 250,000 copies after Steam accepted the game once they had a publisher. The company still struggled. After Steam fees, publishers, etc., they would only have enough funding for 3 months. Yet to create a game, it would require at least a year's worth of funding. They knew they needed to do something, either with another DLC, which still wouldn't bring in enough cash, or create a whole new game. Yet this needed funding as well, which they didn't have. Tomislav had ideas, maybe a space fantasy shooter game. It was at the time the CEO of Crow Team suggested they had enough cash themselves to fund a new project and suggested Tomislav take a look at the top-selling games on Steam. A new game would get them out of a financial hole, and making a popular game would then enable them to create great games in the future, which is all Tomislav and Andre wanted to do. It was never about the money, they just wanted to create great games. Tomislav began analyzing these popular games and saw that the top 5 were early access survival games. He did not know much about these, but after playing them, he realized he loved the idea of them, the potential to create a survival game that brought something that was missing out of the current games available. He explained some were created by modders. They were great ideas, but not executed the way he knew him and his team could do. Tomislav gave a great example of the differences between players, modders, and developers when it comes to early access games. He told us to imagine a car. The player is like the driver, not needing to know specifically how it works, but just drive it. The modders are the guys who can change tires, oils, fit new wheels, etc. But it's the developers who are the ones who know how to build the car from scratch. He knew his team could create an amazing game from scratch. Tomislav spent a long time playing games, and he realized that he played them consciously, with purpose, but some games didn't give him what he wanted. He looked down the sight of a gun in a certain shooter game and realized it didn't enable him to play the way he wanted. He was running around killing other players over and over. The games would be released each year, but they were all variations of the game before, just with better graphics. He knew survival games gave him the experience he wanted, such as options and freedom, but still not quite. They may have been pegged as sandbox, but the players didn't have the option to move forward with a story, AI, missions, etc. These were all great games made by modders who created games for themselves, but they didn't give anything back to the players, and that is what Tomislav wanted. Tomislav pitched his idea of a next-gen survival game to his team of 6. With no money and bad timing, something that would give players an incentive to play, explore, and move forward. Something with missions, AI, NPCs, a story that would make sense, that would connect all elements of the game together. Something that would become SCUM. Unfortunately, his team did not have the same enthusiasm and doubted it could be done at all, but Tomislav knew he was great at motivating people to jump into things that may scare them. This was an indie development team. They weren't constricted by the same fears as AAA developer teams. The guys who had to stick to a great but safe formula of if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of a game. Churning out the same variation of the game year after year, it works, it brings money, but that is not what this team wanted, and so it began. Crow team invested. With a team of 6, they had 3 months to learn the Unreal Engine and begin to create something which in 2 years would be released in a pre-alpha state. This was actually something that team didn't want, by the way, but by then they'd grown into a team of 12 to 14 and they had little choice in the matter. The team knew it wasn't ready and delayed it for a couple of months until it was at least playable. Tomislav said they were lucky. The marketing for the release was done so well that it brought in enough revenue to continue the game development the way they wanted. This was the first game they released in pre-alpha, and Tomislav explained that a lot of people aren't sure about the different stages of release, so he put out a tweet, and the link of that will be in the description below as well. Releasing SCUM for early access excited Tomislav immensely. He was keen to work with players to create the game. This is what EA is all about. However, he then told us that he would never release an early access game again. He feels that early access has changed. He gave another great analogy about how he sees players, developers, and early access games. If a person buys a car, they buy the finished product. They don't need to know how it works. They don't need to work with the engineers to make it better, create the features of the vehicle, yet if it breaks down, you can expect them to fix it. The same is for games. If you buy a finished game, you expect it to work. If it does not, you can complain. Tell the developers and they can fix it. However, buying an early access game is different. You are part of the development. The game will be unfinished and broken, and it is part of the understanding that you are part of the development via feedback, bug reports, suggestions, etc. Now, players seem less and less willing to play broken games. They almost expect early access games to be released in a better state than how they used to be. Tomislav wanted to walk with the players through this journey, and it has not quite happened. He mentioned a recent tweet, one that suggested players can use fame points to buy back gear they lose upon dying. Tomislav realized while playing the game and seeing feedback from players that there was an element of frustration. You would spend hours looting, going into bunkers, building up gear to be taken out by a sentry and instantly lose all of your hard-earned stuff. He assumed this was a great way to ease that frustration and decided to tweet his idea. He was looking forward to opening a dialogue with players, having a constructive conversation with them, but instead, he was attacked. He described how the tweet was met with such backlash. Players complained this ruined PvP. Comments such as, quote, "Why must we lose out on our hard-earned loot after killing a player," end quote, were many. Not just on his tweet, he was sent private messages attacking him for his idea. We sat and listened to his story and I was horrified. This is a man who has described how he has spent years and years creating games for players, not money. Researching features so in depth he even once starved himself. A man who made sure his employees were paid and could not pay himself. Someone who opens a dialogue with players, reads comments, takes suggestions, responds to every message he receives, and he was attacked by his own community. Even telling us this part, he still defends those players. He said he understood where this frustration came from. It came from a place of passion for the game. I sat and wondered if any of those players were listening to him right now and wondered if they felt ashamed. All he wanted to do was collaborate with the community. I will say this is an amazing community. Most of us are not in any way like this, however, it seems a few have had a huge impact on the team, and not in a good way. However, they are by far the most committed development team I know and will always remain open and receptive to the community and their ideas. He did say one of his complaints was the lack of respect he sees from comments. The dev team read as much as they can, and he sees the depressing and demotivating effect this has on his team. Please, if you have a gripe about the game, consider some constructive feedback. Consider motivating the team rather than bringing them down to make yourself feel better. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it. I know this was a lot. This was a slightly longer video than I normally put out, but once again, the transcript was written by Noodle and it deserved to be read in its entirety because the interview itself from Tomislav was fantastic. Knowing the struggles and the despair and the success that he and his team have had, and his selfless attitude towards game development and the response from the community, it all deserves to be told. And I am just glad that I have a part in telling his story and Scum's story and his development team's story. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I will leave you. Once again, my memberships are open, so if you want great cheap rates for fantastic perks, click that join button and find out what they are. Join my Discord to get updates on Scum for my server, Path House. And as always, if you like scares, survival, and scavenging, consider hitting that subscribe button, that like button, share this with your friends, and I will see you all in the next one. Path out.